I have called this segment that we're sharing together today, we're paying off the house in the future, or also live and give like no one else. And again, I borrowed that expression from the author and the host of the Ramsey Steps, or the Baby Steps, Dave Ramsey. We've talked extensively now through the first few baby steps. I won't go, I'll just read them off, and later on, again, if we have questions on it, we can certainly talk about it. Today we're looking at number 6 and number 7. Number 1 was to save $1,000 for a baby emergency fund, which we've discussed that at length. Number 2 was to pay off all debt, meaning consumer debt, everything but the house. So again, that's everything. So if it's a car note, a department store, bank note, hospital bill, doctor's bill, IOU to an individual, whatever, whoever, if it's not a mortgage, then everything gets attacked in baby step 2. And then our journey, we also learned then that as we do so, we list our debt smallest to largest, not based on interest rate, but smallest to largest based on the actual amount of the bill. So we put this, smallest bill, $200 or $50, $400, and so forth. And again, with working through those steps, one piece to keep in mind, if there are 2 bills that are the same value, i.e. $1,000 to company A, $1,000 to company B, and one of them is charging a 3% interest rate, the other one is charging a 10% interest rate, which one should you pay first in that scenario? Which one, the higher interest rate or lower interest rate one? Okay, so you go then to the higher interest rate one in that particular scenario, okay? Then switch over. I'm not saying do that for everything. I am only saying if those are the same, 2 bills there, 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, in terms of the amount. Otherwise, we focus off of purely who do I owe the most, who do I owe the least, and we start building up some success and wins, and we start seeing that we're gaining traction, that this actually is working. It's not just something that sounds good, but it's working. And during baby steps 1 and 2, we're tightening up the belt. Extra things are going out. So don't have it in my budget to eat out. Don't have it in my budget for extra items and so forth. So I'm ratcheting down. Now again, don't do something silly. When I say don't do something silly, think of everything you're going through. I know the excitement can be there that, hey, I'm going to do this. But think the process through. Like, it wouldn't make sense if, let's say, for instance, I'm paying a $10 a month payment, and there is a year commitment to it, and the year cancellation is, say, $500, and I have just 1 year left. Well, it wouldn't make sense for me to pay a $500 termination fee to get out of paying, $120, right? Like if it's $10 a month and it's for a year, $10 times 12 is $120. And they say, well, we'll let you out of the contract early if you pay us an early termination fee of $500. Well, that doesn't make sense. Okay, so so always keep your math in mind when making decisions in that respect. So just think about it to make sense. Now, if it were a situation where I'm paying $1,000 a month, and they were to say, well, we'll let you out if you pay a $500 early termination fee, then it would make sense to pay an early termination fee because I'm paying $12,000 versus $500. So you really won't run against that, but I just want you to have the thought in mind. We're paying off everything but the house in this respect. So I'm paying anything that I owe, I'm getting it taken care of. You may also come across in this step owed debts. Leave owed, like when I say owed debts, meaning they aren't bothering me, I'm not bothering them. The bill collector has gotten tired of calling because he knows that he's not getting any money. Okay, so they sent to the collections, and the collections guy is tired of calling because they aren't getting any money. Let sleeping dogs lie. Just leave them there. Deal with the stuff that is active. Okay, and then when you are ready to then move to those sleeping dogs, now you'll be able to go in and to negotiate with them. Because again, if they haven't been paid in 3 years and 5 years, they will likely come back and say, you had initially owed us $800. Now we want you to pay us $4,000. Well, I'm not going to pay you $4,000 off of me initially owing you $800. Okay, does that make sense? No. You know, I'm not going to pay you. No, it doesn't make sense. You're not going to do that. Oh no, it doesn't make sense to pay that. Okay, yeah, it doesn't make sense. So again, you know, I'm not going to pay you. They say we have interest and accumulated fees and this, that, and the other. No, not to the tune of $4,000. No, you don't. Okay, so here's what we'll do. I'll send you a cashier's check. Okay, not a check from my bank account. I will not give you my debit card number. I will send you a money order, and I'll send it, you know, once you send me in writing that this $500 will satisfy and pay the debt in full. You know, I can't stress that enough. If you don't receive that in writing from them, you don't do business. Because it then becomes, we never had that conversation, or it may become, I should say. Are you called to speak to Samantha, and Samantha isn't there? And she was not authorized to make this arrangement. Okay, so you don't want to get yourself in that scenario. Again, this is all for old debt and so forth. So have it in writing, and then you don't give them access to your checking account, to your because you might say you can go and take $500, but they'll go in and take out whatever they can take out. Okay. Well, it being illegal and them doing it are two different things, right? That's right. So and then you know, now you don't have any money to pay for rent, don't have any money to buy groceries, and you calling up customer service saying, give me back my money, and it's not about to happen. So again, it's wrong, it's immoral for them to do that, but we're not talking about what is right and wrong, we're just talking about what people do. All right, so it'd be wrong for them to do that, but when they have access, they can, if you owe them legally the debt of $800, and they said that we're only going to take 80, if they want, they can go in and take more than the 80, okay? Again, reputable companies won't do that, but when we're dealing with people who are trying to get money, they will typically say and do anything to get money. So, as Dave says, how can you tell a bill collector is lying? Because their lips are moving. So, all right, so just word to the wise. Okay, number 3, baby step 3, step number 3. Then once all these are paid off and you breathe a little sigh of relief, you know, you're still on a budget, okay? We never live to the point where we don't live by a budget. I may not have explained that before, but we never graduate to where we don't have a budget. You always have a budget. Why? Because the budget is really to say, what are you going to do with your money? You know, what is your goal? So if you don't have imagine if you don't have a budget and you have no bills to pay. You're just going to blow money on any and everything. But you know, you have a budget to keep you in line with what I'm doing, what my objectives, what my goals are, because you still have other goals down the road. Maybe it's not getting out of debt now because we've crossed that. Now we're to saving 3 to 6 months of expenses for a fully funded emergency fund. And that, again, is 3 to 6 months of expenses, not income, but expenses. And here the idea is that if there is a unforeseen circumstance, a job loss, a layoff, unemployment, sick, etc., if I can have something here to be able to fall back on, there's a little more breathing room more comfortably if I have some money in, you know, a savings account and I don't have to worry about going back out so quickly. So 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. Number 4 was that to invest 15% of your household income into retirement. We identified that we will retire. You're not going to work until the day you die. So it's imperative then to save. And you know, we're not trying to do these steps at the same time. We're doing one after the other. And why are we doing one after the other versus at the same time? Because we want traction. You know, we want to win. So if you're saving 15% of your income into retirement and you're still trying to get out of debt, well, again, that's 15% that you could be using toward debt. Now you're saying, well, hey, wait a minute, you showed us last week about the girl and the boy. And the girl's, you know, she invested earlier and the boy invested later. I need to hurry up and get on track because I'm missing out. Well, the ship has not sailed, all right? But the sooner we can pay off those debts, then we have nothing else. Because the problem will be if we said 15% of your income at the same time, and then there's an emergency. and you don't have an emergency fund, what are you going to do? What am I going to do? We're going to go raid that emergency fund. But we already talked about the retirement. But we know that when it's in the retirement account, I'm going to be taxed for an early withdrawal. So there's a penalty for taking it out early, which is 10%. And then there is a tax rate that I have to pay, which will typically be about 30% to 40%. So why would I, if I'm saying, does it make sense to borrow money at 20% interest, and you said no, does it make sense to borrow money at 50% interest? No. All right, so we don't want to do that. That's not a plan. So we're going to step 4, having that understanding. Step number 5, we also talked of last week, saving then for children's college funds. So we want to begin to save for our kids going to college. And again, college could be, they could go to the best colleges of the world. They could be going to the community colleges. They could be going to a trade college. They could, whatever. But I'm saving in anticipation of that. I don't want them to have to take out loans. I don't want them to have to go off and to put this albatross around them. I want them to be able to be independent enough that this is what it is. And again, based off of what we've been able to save, scholarships, grants, all those different things, working will determine that to a great extent what choice of school will be there. Keeping good grades, of course, your kids will help out for your parents, because the better grades you have, you're typically going to have people say, we want you to come study. Okay, so you want to keep your grades up as best as possible, because that will help in the long term. Number 6, we're looking at today, paying off the home early. And then number 7, baby step 7, is building wealth and giving. All right, and again, we're going to talk about some of these. There'll be some questions, and there are some pieces that we didn't talk about, but I will try to address as side notes to keep in mind things that could come along that could cause problems. We identified last week the importance of not putting all of our eggs in one basket as it comes to retirement. And one of the questions that came up afterwards was taking a lump sum versus the annual amount and so forth of the payments. And I said, well, yeah, take the lump sum. And again, definitely that's the better route. But I want to state for the convenience of those who are here, whenever you have a lump sum payment, you're going to have to be disciplined enough, because now I'm taking all that money. And if I blow the money, that's it. It's no more. So when you're in that situation, again, discipline yourself. Take the sum, assuming that you have built up the muscle so that you'll get it, and I know exactly what I'm going to do with it. Because if I don't, when the money is gone, all you have are memories. All right? And memories don't feed the stomach. Okay? So plan that way. Know yourself. Be true to it in that respect. So quickly, in a couple of pieces of retirement that we didn't talk about last week, but I want you to be aware of. According to the Social Security, the average benefit that was paid out for retired workers was $1,480 a month. So that was like the average payout. Some got more, some got less, but the average payout is $1,480 last year. The longer you wait to take Social Security retirement benefit, the more it goes up to a certain amount. Basically, there's a formula and a threshold. It's based off of how many quarters you work, how much you paid in. You never get out what you pay in, okay? So that does not happen. You never get out what you pay in, but you receive this amount, $1,480 on average. Okay, it could be more, it could be less, but it's based on how much you put in. If you wait until older to take it out, every year you wait, the contribution level increases. And like we did some of the math last week, then you can, if you're in a position to say, well, I don't need to withdraw until I'm 70. So hypothetically, you could be 62, and you certainly would be eligible for benefits. And again, this is not full benefits. This will be partial based off of age. And maybe the payment is $1,500. But you look at the math and realize, well, if I wait until I'm 70, the payment will be $2,000. So difference of $600. So you might elect, assuming your financial situation, to say, well, I'm going to wait until I'm 70 to take retirement benefits. So that means then and you want to retire at 62. So that means from 62 to 70, you will still need to have other retirement income so that you won't have to depend upon Social Security. And then at age 70, you'll be able then to get your $2,100 in that example. Does that make sense? Okay, and so based on that, you do the math the same way to say, well, if I took it at age 62 versus at age 70, and it's a $700 a month difference, then you'll quickly figure out then, well, 700 is the difference between the two. So 700 times 12, I will get an extra $8,400 a year if I wait until I'm age 70 to take versus age 62 in my example. Does that make sense? And then you just say, okay, well, if I'm getting an extra $8,400 versus if I take it now and I got $1,480 into 12, say it's $1,500, 10,000, about $14,000 is what that comes out to, right? So I would, again, you do the math then. So 14,000 into 6 years is $84,000. So if I wait to age 70 to take out this retirement, then essentially it would take me 10 years before I recover what I missed between age 64 and age 70. Does that make sense? I know, maybe the math doesn't make sense to you, but I walked you through it. You should have had an overhead. But that's the process that you look at. It's kind of like a break-even analysis, which is what we would call a break-even analysis. How much time is it going to take me to recoup what I would have lost, okay? And if you have pretty good health, and you don't know everything, nobody knows how long we're going to live. No one knows when we're going to die. But assuming you have relatively good health and longevity seems to run in your family, well, then it would make sense to wait, right? Because you're 70, so now so once you hit age 80, everything above and beyond that is surplus. Does that make sense? Because it was the 10 years to break even, because you lost some of you look like, okay, you're not figuring out the math, but I hate to say trust me on this, but trust me on the math. But essentially at age 80 now, all right, I'm where I would have been. So now everything extra that's coming in from that 700, I'm up an extra 8,000 every year thereafter, okay? So I know that, again, that may not make sense. I'll cover it when we go to questions if it doesn't make sense. So keep that in mind, though, when it is time, but you can only go into retirement. So when you make the withdrawal, you're making it then. You're making that decision at that time, but it must be based upon you not having all your eggs in one basket. Because if you are solely reliant upon Social Security, then you're really not going to have the option to say, well, I'm going to wait. Okay? Because if you stop working, you have to eat, you have to survive, so that won't be an option to decide at that particular time. We talked about diversification and the importance of it. And diversification really is just a way to be able to minimize risk. So that when you are planning for retirement, and when should you plan to retire? As soon as you can. All right? You begin the process as soon as you can. With the baby steps, working through, on average, it takes people 18 to 24 months to be able to work themselves out of debt, paying off everything but the house. So some are going to do it faster, some are going to do it a little quicker. So I'm in this austerity for this period of maybe 18 months. Not able to maybe I can't do a vacation right now. I have a mess to clean up. It's like when you're a kid and your friend came by and you got in trouble and you wanted to go out and play, and they say, well, hey, can you come out, let's go play ball. And you had to say what? I can't. Why? Because I'm on punishment. So everybody else is going on vacation, and they say, well, hey, come on, let's go. Bahamas is going to be nice, and I can't. Why? Because I'm on punishment. I'm on restrictions. It's the same deal, right? Just from a child to an adult, because I want to take care of this. So the quicker I take care of this, and even when you're a kid, sometimes you're doing chores, and your friend's like, well, how much longer you need? Well, I got to clean the room and take care of the dog. It's going to be like at least 45 minutes. And they might say, well, I'll wait for you. Either, hey, meet me at the ballpark because I'll be there, but just come on. And you hurry up and you do the dishes, you do your chores, because the sooner you get done, the sooner you get to go play. So transfer that mentality. The sooner I get done cleaning up this mess, the quicker I can go and live. The quicker I can go in to enjoy life. Diversification is important because this, again, is diversifying. And so we talked about this, that we diversify our income, or rather our investment, so that it is not all putting our eggs in one basket. We also identified the importance of investing early. In this analogy, it is not saying stop investing after 11 years. Okay, so please don't take that away from it. We went through the math. The only thing I was trying to show you is that the sooner you start, the better off you are. It is not saying just do for 10 years and stop. I'll do for 15 years, okay, well, I'm done with that. No, you continue on. It becomes a way of life, okay? And the other token, the person who started later on in life, again, they continue through. So start early and continue the process. We also talked about the 4 types of investment that you would do in mutual funds: growth and income, growth, aggressive growth, and international, in the funds that have long track records. One piece I do want to clarify that I didn't may have misspoken last week, so I'm not sure, so I just want to be clear. When I talked about the Roth IRA versus the traditional IRA, the difference is, again, the Roth, you fund that with after-tax dollars. I think I said that, but I'm not 100% sure. But in case I misstated, I could have said the Roth to the traditional. I'm not sure. But to be sure, the Roth is something you pay into after-tax dollars. So you've already paid taxes on it. So all the growth that happens is tax-free. So if you put in $100,000 with tax-free money, with money you've already paid taxes on, and it grows to $700,000, you don't pay taxes on the growth. Isn't that nice? That's tax-free, all right? Tax-deferred is, as the name implies, I am deferring taxes. So tax-deferred would be on a traditional IRA, okay, or a normal, you'd see this in a 401k. I don't get the money, so for those who are in a 401k situation, you make, let's say, $10,000. You don't get that $10,000, you don't bring it all home, you return, you contribute a certain portion to your 401k. What you contribute to your 401k is not taxed. So you might put in $2,000, but you're not taxed on that money that you put in. You only pay taxes on the $8,000. Okay? So then when it is time, so it grows from $100,000 to $800,000. But the difference in this one is when you go to take it out, you didn't pay taxes in the beginning. So now you need to pay taxes. You deferred your taxes. Does that make sense? You put it off. So now you're going to pay taxes as you withdraw that money out. So that's the difference between tax deferred versus tax free. So obviously, which one would you want? Tax free versus tax deferred. Both are still good investment choices, but tax free beats that. Lastly, when a company is offering you a free match in a 401k, you always take the match first because that's free money. They say, look, we will match your contributions 3%. So same math, if you made $100,000 and you contribute 3% of your income, which we said you're going to do 15, but if you did 3%, that's $3,000. And if they're matching dollar for dollar, then they're going to put up $3,000. So you just made 100% off of that $3,000 that you put in. Okay, so that's $6,000 that you have for this year. All right, so you want to definitely make sure that you take advantage of matching contributions from employers and make sure that it is fully vested. Fully vested will be, they will typically give you a period of time that you have to be an employee before that money is yours. So some companies it's a year, some it's 3 years, some it's 5 years, and so forth. But nonetheless, that's an option that is there again. So you want to take advantage of that as such. And then the last one that we didn't talk about was the SEP, That's a simplified employee pension. Meaning, if you own your own business, you can contribute and have the same benefits as what a person would get if they were working for, a company that did a 401k. So you can fund your own retirement. Now, the nice thing about all these things is that when you, well, 90% of them, I'll say, when you give to them, is it reduces your taxable income. This is how you hear of, quote, rich people saying that they don't pay taxes. Not that they're doing something illegally or illegal per se. It's they may be taking advantage of something anybody can take advantage of. But we're not able to take advantage of it either because we don't know about it or because we don't have the resources. So in that same analogy, if you had $1,000 and you contribute, say, 30% of your income into one of these, the amount that you are now taxed on is $70,000. Does that make sense? And because we have a tiered tax system, 100,000 may be at this rate, 80,000 may be at this rate, and then 75,000 may be here. So I could drop myself into a lower tax bracket based off of what I've chosen to do with money. Just a side note, you can look that up later, okay? But those are pieces to consider. So now, let's talk about this next one. In Inspiration, we read that it's being able to own a home is, I'll paraphrase, like a blessing. I'll say, the pen of inspiration, we read that, being able to then have a home. Now, does that mean everybody should buy a home? No, it doesn't mean that, okay? But if you're able to do it and to move into it, it is wise. So let's look at a couple of things first. Number one, if you're going to do it, to buy a home, then you want to make sure the home doesn't have you. And you don't want to buy a home when you're broke. You don't have the money to be able to pay for it. Barely we're scraping by, and we have this obligation, that one, and so forth. A house then is not going to be a blessing. It's going to be more of a curse. And there are a lot of people that we can look at who can testify that this is a curse. One of the things that created the housing bubble in 2008 was this component of people buying stuff they couldn't afford. And I know that some would say, well, these are the greedy mortgage companies that gave these shady loans to people who they shouldn't have given them to. And that was a portion of it. It was. The other portion was greedy people taking these shady loans that shouldn't have been taking them. So you have like a dope dealer saying to a dope addict, come get as much dope as you want. And I can't be mad at either one of them because both of them are doing what they both do. So we have to have the wherewithal. And so even though the bank might say, well, here, come in, you can get this, you're qualified for it, that doesn't mean that that's a wise thing. Certainly there were more pieces that took place in that, but just keeping it very simple, that was one of the main issues that took place. Certainly there was fraud that happened on both sides, but this is one of the issues. But to be wise about it, there's nothing wrong with wanting to get a home if you so desire it. Maybe you don't want to get a home. That's totally fine. But if you do desire to get a home, these are the pieces we'll speak to here. So number one, you want to be able to save and put down as much as possible, as you can. I didn't say you have to pay it off 100%. I said put down as much as possible that you can. Ideally, you want to put down maybe at least 3% or 5%. That's like on the low end that you would want. There are loans that will say you can get in with nothing down. There's some loans that say, well, you can get in with nothing down and we'll give you 103%. Well, we definitely don't want to do that one. Why? Because if I'm giving you 103%, you're going further into debt, right? Okay, because 100% is what it's worth, but they'll say, we'll pay closing costs, we'll pay, everything, just come and get it. Well, now I'm going back even further. So if I can't come up with the closing costs, then I probably can't really afford to get the house in the first place, right? If I can't come up with the, little bit to get in, it's not a good deal. Because once I get in the house, it's different from living, in an apartment or a rented home. When I'm in a rental home and I go to turn the AC and it doesn't come on, I place a call to the landlord. That's his problem. The stove doesn't work. That's his problem. The toilet doesn't work. That's her problem. But when I'm buying it, when I own it, I am the landlord. Is my problem now. You know, HVAC, if it's really messed up, you could be like $5,000 or $6,000 out of pocket. If the plumbing is messed up, depending on what extent, that could be, again, from several $100s to thousands of dollars. If I can't afford it, then maybe I don't need to buy it. So it looks like it's a really good thing, and it is a good thing. It's nothing like, you know, I've rented, I've owned, and I can tell you it's nothing like owning. But I can also tell you that it's nothing like owning when you can't afford when something goes wrong. That is not a good position to be in, all right? So you want to put down at least, you know, some money to get in, 3% to 5%. Ideally, you'd want to put down 20% or more to avoid PMI. So what is PMI? PMI is private mortgage insurance. And that is the bank saying, because you have not put down enough money, you don't have enough skin in the game. So in addition to your regular mortgage payment, we're going to charge you a little bit more for insurance in case you default. And if you're in a situation where you have PMI, then you can get it removed by a couple of things, one of which is by either continuing to pay, you know, aggressively toward the principal so that your principal amount goes up beyond 20%, and or as housing rates go up, so also does the value of the principal you have in the home. So picture, if you will, you buy a house for $100,000. I know you're saying, well, that definitely is a picture because you're not getting that in California. You know, you won't find it for $100,000, but you buy it for $100,000, and let's pretend you put down 5% interest. 5% into the home. So basically, it was $95,000. It appraises when they come out and look for it, $400,000. You know, so you bought the home, you have PMI on it. You're going to need to pay that until you get your loan value down below 20% or below $80,000. Right? You bought 100. You have to get it below 80,000 for PMI to go off. You're at 95,000. Let's say year two, year one, after being there, the house goes up 10% in value. So now we're sitting at like $110,000, right? Year two comes by and it goes up 15%. So now you're sitting at like $129,000 in value, what the house is appraised for versus, again, what you bought it for. So if you were to go to sell it and it appraises for $129,000, in theory, you would have made almost $30,000. But now you're not trying to sell it. You're just going in and saying, well, I want to refinance it. Okay? Because now I have more than 20% equity in there because you've made your payments during that time, but you received your biggest gain from the equity, how much it has gone up in value. Does that make sense? So then you would now call in and be able to refinance to be able to get PMI removed. And refinance, you have to go through, you know, a whole refinancing package and so forth. But the long story short is that now you're able to remove PMI by that means. So one or the other or a combination of it. Either making payments or equity and payments getting you to that magic threshold of 20% or so. Okay? Number two, you want to go to a fixed rate loan. And a fixed rate is, the rate is fixed. Your payment is locked in. This is what it's going to be for this period of time. As such, you want to do a 15-year loan. That's the plan. Do a 15-year loan. Now, a 30-year loan can get you in more home, but typically you want to get into a 15-year loan. And I didn't put it on here, but no more than a fourth of your take-home pay, because you don't want to be, you know, stretched too much. Have, you know, house poor, can't do anything else. All my money's going out to the house. It's not a good position to be in. You want to live beyond the house, right? Because then the house owns me, I don't own it. So 15-year, no more than a quarter of your take-home pay. And lastly, again, you want to use a fixed versus a variable rate. A variable rate would be, as the market changes, your rate changes as well. That was one of the other things that caught a lot of people in the 2008 housing meltdown, is that they had gotten fixed rates. I mean, not fixed rates, variable rates. And so they may start in at 1%, but if you start at 1% and I'm stretched, I don't have any more wiggle room, and rates go up to 2%, I'm messed, I'm out of gas. And if they go up again to 3%, again, I'm out of gas because I'm at my capacity. So you never want to do a variable rate. You always want a fixed rate. I'm locking it in. This is for a fixed rate for a fixed period of time, ideally 15 years as such. Question, can I use my 401k to buy a house? And the answer is yes, the government will allow you to take out a 401k loan to buy a house. You can also take out a hardship loan from your 401k. So if you needed money, you could take it out. But I've already talked about one of the reasons why you wouldn't want, a hardship loan is different from just a regular loan, okay? Hardship is they won't charge you any penalties. You won't have any adverse effect. However, during that time the money is out of that investment, you're losing your opportunity for growth. So you want to avoid taking out of this 401k unless it's absolutely necessary, like to stave off a bankruptcy or something of that nature. Wait, this shouldn't be here. Let me switch up. All right. Yeah, I'm going to come back there. All right, so that's baby step 6. And I want to jump quickly to 7 and then slide back to a couple of pieces here. We talked about insurance last week a little bit, but there was one piece I didn't cover. One, when we talk of term life versus whole life, remember again that term life is the one that we want. And you say, well, who needs insurance? If you have anyone that is depending upon you for financial sustenance, you need insurance. Otherwise, you could get some type of small policy for burial, just something to be able to cover you, $5,000, $10,000 for burial. But if someone is depending upon you, you're the care provider, the caretaker, then you want to have insurance there, because think of it then from this capacity. When I'm gone, who's going to take care of them? If I'm earning an income, who's going to provide for them? So you want to make sure that you have insurance there. Again, anywhere from 3 to 5 times what your annual income is. And we want term, because term is going to be cheaper versus whole life. Whole life covers a whole life. Term is going to be for a fixed amount of time, whether it's a 10-year, 15-year, 20 years, it's a fixed space that is such. And when that term is over, you're going to have to come back and reapply. You say, well, why would I want to do that then? Because wouldn't the whole life be cheaper? Objectively, no, the whole life is not going to be cheaper still, because you're paying like 4 times as much starting in the process. But with the term, if you're following the steps, once you paid off your house, paid off debt, and you have a sizable nest egg, you don't need insurance. Then you can still have it, but the need for it has diminished. Okay? Because if your spouse were to pass, or you were to pass and you left it for your kids or whoever, if the house is paid for and there is no debt, is there such a big need for insurance? No. Now if you have, pay for, you can, when you have some money that has been left aside, they'll be able to limp along. So it's not necessarily needed, okay? But it is something to, again, keep in mind. It's definitely a part of your plan. The last piece is here, an umbrella coverage. We didn't talk about this. So most, when you're starting off in the process, umbrella coverage is something you probably won't even consider. But as you start moving through, you want to look at having an umbrella coverage. And so what is the umbrella coverage as it relates to insurance? So think of having your possessions under an umbrella, under covering, and you're putting another umbrella on top of that. So an umbrella policy is basically another policy. It's like a insurance policy on top of an insurance policy. So it pays above and beyond what insurance would pay. Now so you want to be mindful of it as you start accumulating assets. Because typically, like if you for car insurance and so forth. If you have like the cheapest coverage on your car insurance, I would consider you go back into to raise it. I'm not talking about the collision and so forth, but I'm talking about when you hit someone. So you have different like bodily damage, bodily injury, property, and so forth, and it could be like an average one you might see is 50,000, 100,000. Well, that doesn't cover anything. Okay, how many cars on the road that are more than $50,000? So I'm driving down the street and my coverage is at $25,000, and I run into your brand new Tesla and total it. Okay, so my $25,000 isn't going to cover your Tesla. So guess who has to pay the difference? You have to pay the difference. So don't go for the quote, the cheapest, the lowest amount that is there. Okay, and then you also want to consider then other pieces that you can adjust. Well, bodily harm, bodily injury. Again, someone goes to the hospital, they're going to need, it's going to be a pretty significant bill. So you want to raise it up to make sure that you cover others and property and so forth. So like 250 or 300,000, something in that neighborhood is really what you want to look at. Now for your own vehicle, then you want to make sure that your vehicle is covered, or if you can afford that it can be totaled, and I just go and get another one, then that's fine. That has to be a choice you make. You have to work the math and kind of see. But when you're talking about hitting somebody else, hey, all bets are off. So beyond just that insurance, what if you hit two cars? Like, okay, you can rear end. So you rear end somebody, you're responsible for them and the damage that the other vehicle causes. Because I wouldn't have, I rear end you, you rear end them, unless they were just too close together. You might share some part, but assuming that that's not the case, or a side stripe, I'm responsible. It was my poor driving that created the issue. So you want to have a policy that's going to be able to cover. So again, situations like that, an umbrella would come in handy. Or you have assets. Some examples, you have a swimming pool or a trampoline. Somebody comes to do some work on your property, and they fall and they break their leg. They can come back and say they want to sue. And we live in a very litigious society. You look at somebody the wrong way, I'm going to sue you. You breathe on them too hard, I'm going to sue you. Okay, so this is where we live. So you want to be able to try to protect yourself. And so this is the whole purpose of an umbrella policy. It's pennies on the dollar. So you can get like an umbrella policy for maybe $100 to cover you for the entire year. One other piece that you can notice there, you have, if you ski, surf, or hunt, I don't think there's probably anybody in here that skis, surfs, or hunts, maybe. They ski? All right. So we have a skier there and a surfer maybe. Of course, you own property. If you have a significant savings or assets, so you built up some type of savings, you want to be able to protect that. But then you see, if you have kid drivers, you want to be able to protect yourself because they hit something, and God forbid you hit someone, I hit someone. An umbrella policy, this is what it is for. It is there just to be able to go above and beyond. So, get a really good policy of what you have, and then take that as you start moving out of debt, saving some money, to be able to have an umbrella policy that is there to be able to protect, because that steps in again for additional suits and so forth. Now I'm going to take back for a second to where and I skip by this, and then open up for any questions. So we talked about, baby step 7 is that living and giving, building wealth and so forth. So what are you doing, baby step 7? Essentially, now you're doing the same couple of things. Giving away some of your money for, again, as you've done with charity, causes that you find near and dear to your heart. You're going to enjoy some of the money that you've worked for. And you're going to do some things that maybe you thought you wouldn't be able to do. I want to go see Egypt. You want to go to to Jerusalem. I want to see what it looks like. I want to go to Rome, check it out. Okay, well, you've worked, you've sacrificed, you saved for the purpose of being able to do some of those things. I want to send my kids to do something. I want to build a church in some island somewhere to be able to bankroll that. All right, when we're not making payments, then we're able to live some of our dreams. We're able to do some of the things that we desire. Ecclesiastes says this. It says in chapter 9, verse 7. It says, "Go thy way, eat your bread with joy, and drink your wine with a merry heart. For God now accepteth thy works. Let thy garments be white, and let thy head lack no ointment. Live joyfully with the wife whom thou lovest all the days of the life of thy vanity, which he hath given thee under the sun all the days of thy vanity, for that is thy portion in this life, and in thy labor which thou takest under the sun." Paraphrasing it, he's saying, enjoy your life. Enjoy your life. Enjoy your life with your spouse. Drink your wine with a merry heart. Eat your bread with joy. Why? For whatsoever your hand findeth to do, do it with all thy might, for there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave whither thou goest. So his point is, enjoy life because you only pass through one time. And if I follow those different principles, then we'll be able to enjoy life in a different capacity. Okay, we're not talking of giving over to hedonism. We're not talking about giving over to selfish indulgence and pleasure, but the idea of being able to if you live like no one else now, then again later you'll be able to live and to give like no one else. And so then you want to be able to impact someone's life. We're able to be able to positively speak and influence because we've been able to be in a position to do so. Last text, Proverbs chapter 13 and verse 22, it says, "A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children." All right, so you have impacted now, what he's talking about are not just one generation, but multiple generations. So think of it that you and the choices that you make today in this room and hereafter can not only impact you, not only impact your children, but they can impact your children's children, your grandchildren. All because you made a decision and said, you know what, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm disgusted with giving away all my money to Bank of America and Citibank and J.P. Morgan and Nordstrom's and Nordstrom's Rack and this place and that place. I'm tired of that. I want to be able to leave a legacy for my children and for my children's children. And they look at you, you become like the patriarch or so forth on the wall, and they look and say, well, who is that? And they say, oh, that's, great-grandma such and so. That's great-granddaddy such and so. Well, let me tell you about what they did and how they benefited and blessed our family. And they tell the story. Well, many years ago, we didn't have much. And they tell the story that your folks told you that they walked a mile in the snow. Well, I guess they were better off in Fiji then because they had to walk through the snow then. So they had to walk a mile up to school and 2 miles back. And they tell all those stories. But, they made a choice. They made a decision. And because they made a choice and decision, they did all these things here. We are the beneficiaries of those things. It says that a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. So I want to challenge us then that we would then leave an inheritance. Again, not only a physical inheritance, but also a spiritual inheritance as well. Because certainly as we talk about these things, we've looked at them from a perspective of here are some things practical, but also in the Bible. But the true ultimate way of being able to live that capacity is the lesson that we have already learned, that godliness with contentment is great gain. So we're going to live as God bids us to live. We're going to follow the principles as we best can because he's the one that gives us the wealth. He's the one that gives us the strength. And we begin to put these into plan, into action. And as you do it, it will not be easy. But through repetition, it will become easier. And when you're in a position where, again, you're not paying all of our money to credit cards. We don't have to give money for, I mean, imagine if you don't have to pay off, you know, whether you say rent or mortgage. Imagine if you don't have rent or mortgage and you had no debt. So just, savor that for a moment. If you don't have to pay any rent anymore, you don't have to pay any mortgage anymore, what would you do with the mortgage payment by itself? We're down in LA. It was a one-bedroom. It was like $3,500 a month. I'm like, man, what could you do with $3,500? That's not, that's not utilities. And the bedroom is like, I mean, your bathroom is bigger than probably the, what a one-bedroom is there, okay? But you say, well, hey, what could I do if I don't have to give that money away? I'm not saying give it away, but what I'm saying, that's 12 times 3,000, that's $36,000. Another 500 a month, that's 6,000, like $40,000. If I had $40,000, right now someone gave you $40,000, what would you do with it? And I know you say, well, I pay my bills, okay, but if you didn't have bills to pay, right? If no bills to pay, you say, well, okay, well, man, I would like to do this. My kids, they needed this. They needed braces. So I want to get, I get them some braces. Somebody else, they wanted to go on a mission trip. I drop off, $4,000. And you probably wouldn't even know what to do with all that money. You kind of go through it a few times. But we can't get there as long as I have to pay out that $3,500, that debt. But the sooner I stop having to pay that off, now I'm able to start living, my dream. Now I'm starting to live what I believe that God wants me to be able to do and to be able to enjoy. And you don't become evil because you don't live in debt. You can become wise. Okay, you'll be in a position where you can be a greater blessing for people who need to understand and to know, to go in and to be able to give them guidance. One thing we read about in the lessons this week is if people make poor financial choices and decisions, they need good counsel. You can come back in and give counsel. Hey, I understand the grief. I've been in that particular situation. I like to be in a situation sometimes, I haven't seen it too often, but sometimes you're in the store. There are those times you see a person that, you can see they really don't have, right? And they're like, trying to figure out the pennies and so forth. Like, okay, you know what? Hey, and, forget paying, the $2 they owe. I'll just pay everything. No, just, we just want to be acts of giving, right? Because we're not saving to be able to just to have money. The purpose of it is yes, I'm saving for the future for retirement because you don't know what you're going to need. Nobody knows. We make certain assumptions here, but we don't know how our health will be. We have no idea, so we have to plan. And it is good stewardship to be able to plan. One of the things from the Pen of Inspiration as well is that you plan for the future. All right, but when you don't have to pay. You talked about what would you do if you had that money. Now, that was just off the mortgage. Now, you've eliminated all those other debts, okay? And suffice it to say, I know most of us live in paycheck to paycheck because most of us are Americans. When I say American, we not in terms of nationality or so forth, but we are following the American culture, right? So then if we're following the American culture, then in that respect, we're living like Americans, we're broke. We have it, but we're broke. We spent it all. But now I don't have to pay this off, not have to pay that off. My money comes in, I'm doing good things with it that have the blessing of God. So you have your investment here, and again, that's continuing to grow. I'm continuing to contribute to it. That's continuing to grow. The money I'm wasting, even if we just take the money that we were wasting, we could do some significant things. But whatever those visions are, I know God will place it upon your heart. And as you start going through and as you continue on the process, when you get discouraged because you look at the bills and they don't look like they're going anywhere fast forward into the future. All right, by the grace of God, how long is this going to take? You know, and you can figure it out. It's going to take me 12 months to pay all this off. All right, well, when I get to the 13th month, how are things going to be then? You know, when I get to that 14th month, how are things going to appear then? So you plan, you have a plan now. You have the blueprint. So now it's about you going through and executing on the blueprint. You're gonna fall off, but get up, dust yourself off, and go back at it right again. You're gonna fall off, get back up, you know, hold one another accountable. You know, so you're making that journey together. We're gonna get to the end of the road. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delighteth in his way. Though he fall, he shall not be cast down. Why? For the Lord upholdeth him with his hand.